Welcome to Behind the Scenes of BBN, where we explore the history of the student broadcasting program at Scott Community High School. I'm your host, Kaleb Beaton, and today, for our very first episode, I am joined by the creator of the BBN program, Scott Holt. Thank you for coming in today, and how does it feel to be back in this place where you spend a lot of your time?
Yeah, it brings back a lot of memories, that's for doggone sure. I remember the walls and all the little sound foam thingies that I put up on the wall, and man, a lot of time, a lot of memories back here, that's for sure.
Is a lot of the stuff in here still the same from when you were here? Or?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, everything looks, except for the little backdrop, although that's something that, I don't know if that's the one that I bought or if that's something new that Sarah bought, but everything looks exactly the same. I guess she must like what I did.
It's a pretty cozy space, you know?
Yeah, it is kind of cozy in here.
So I've heard you've done a lot of different things for the Scott Community School system, and I was just wondering what all have you done for the school?
Oh, what have I done for the school? Well, first of all, I taught fifth grade for 32 years before I started this. And during that time of those 32 years, I coached, for probably about 25 of those years. I got out of coaching for a little bit of time, but I coached football, basketball, and I coached baseball for about 7 years, all as an assistant. I was smart enough not to be a head coach. But so I was lucky enough to be part of 4 football state championships and 4 basketball state championships, and it was kind of a fun deal during that time. But as for what I've done for the school, probably no more than any other teacher. But we did some neat things, and I know when I was teaching 5th grade, and there was always something special that we were doing. And then the 7 years that I taught here, I think, starting this program from scratch was probably the biggest accomplishment that I ever did, because it took a lot of money and it took a lot of time, that's for sure.
So what led you to starting the BBN program?
Well, actually, I mean, I hadn't even thought about something like this, but because I was coaching with Coach Glenn O'Neill, who's now at Dodge, I was the person that did all the videos. I made the videos and got everything from the game film, because we did not have Huddle back then. And so I don't know if you're familiar with what Huddle is, but now they video the game, take it, put it on a card, or they even sometimes just transmit it right away up to the cloud to Huddle. But back in the day, we would basically video the game on our camera, but it was with a tape at that time. So then when the game was done, I'd have to take and download it into the computer, which you couldn't do it anything faster. So it was, if it was an hour and a half, I'd have to wait an hour and a half before I could do anything. And then after that, I'd have to edit it a little bit, render it out, burn it to a DVD, and then hand it to Coach O'Neill. And that was probably, sometimes I'd be done by, depending on if we got home late when I coached, I could be handing it to him at 6:30 in the morning when I got done. And so I wouldn't go without I'd go without any sleep that time. So I was the person that did all that video. And then our superintendent and principal approached me one day about starting a video program. And so they just, wanted to know my thoughts on it. And I said, yeah, it sounds interesting. And so I did a lot of research and spent about a year as they would approach me and talk to me still about doing it. And finally, I, just asked them what they were wanting, and they said whatever I wanted to do. So that gave me a lot of leeway. And so after study this and study that and look at these different things and programs from different places, I said, sure, let's start a video program and build it from the ground up and see what we can make of it, you know. And I really had no idea what I was going to do until I started doing the research that summer and stuff as to what, because there was no program what we were going to follow. So it's a long story, but you know, it happened pretty fast, really.
Yeah, nowadays we have a drone for our football film.
Yeah.
And then just...
Yeah. And that's something that's new, because I know when I first started back in 2013, one of the first things they told me was, you cannot use a drone. Nothing in KS, you know, the CASA will allow you to use drones, but I think they've lightened up a little bit on it and realized that drones are beneficial. You're not going to fly the drone over the field or over the top of it or anything like that, but yeah, I think the drones are a good thing for them right now too. It makes for good viewing and the angle that they get, and you know, it's a nice thing.
What's your favorite memory from being the BBN teacher?
Oh, boy, I've got a lot of memories. I mean, the one thing about when I was here, I think I'm not going to say one specific one. I mean, I know the one that I'll say, but there's a couple that I've got to throw in just because, was working with some of the good kids that I had. Everybody would say, oh man, you've done such a great job with these kids. They're doing... I may have done a decent job, but these kids were so special and so good that I didn't have to do a lot. They were so natural at what they were doing. They enjoyed what they were doing, and they, you know, it made me look good, is what it did. And that was special, because I got so many special kids that I got to work with and build some good relationships with. But I guess the most special was when we won the national championship in the, you know, for the best live broadcast in 2019 with the NFHS network stuff.
We actually have this in it right
here. Yeah, that
just
award right there.
Just for this episode.
Yeah, that was probably the most special overall. And again, because we won it, not because of me, but again because of some of the students I had, and it was pretty special, pretty fun.
Would you say there's like a lot of moments like that throughout the BBN that were just, they might not have been like the greatest achievements, but they are definitely still like special memories?
Well, yeah, I mean, like I said with Mrs. Ratzlaff, again, it's hard to, every day, because you work so closely with, that's where I was going, was you work so closely with the students, I think different than in a regular classroom, because you travel with kids. You have to, you know, do this and do that. And because working in the classroom that I worked in for 32 years, you know, you build some nice relationships, but you never went to this ball game and this ball game, rode in the same vehicle over and over and over. And I think those are more of the special things that I got to build, was those relationships. You know, I still hear from some of the kids today, and that's what's fun about it, you know. I think that's what I would probably call the most special, I mean, overall.
What was the most amount of kids you ever had in one of like your BBN classes?
Total amount?
Yeah.
55.
You had 55 kids in one BBN class?
Well,
or like
the whole BBN over itself. But yeah, we were full. I mean, when I had 55 students in all my classes combined, but when you would take it, there were several that I had that every computer was full. I mean, you know, in there where we had, I don't even remember, I don't know how many computers we had out there.
I think now we have
10.
Yeah.
And yeah, every single one was full for almost every period that we had. And again, there was just a lot of kids, and sometimes there wasn't, I think there's more choices for college classes and things now, and that affected me a little later on down the road, where some of the kids would say that they really wanted to take the class, but they couldn't this semester or that semester because they had to take a college class. But yeah, there was one year where I had 55 total in the 7 classes that we had. So, it's pretty good average.
Yeah. Are you, would you say you're proud of the way that the BBN is being run now, even though you're not the one, running it? Would you say you're, proud of the way it's, grown?
Absolutely. I mean, I won't go into a year of things that happened, and I think Mrs. Ratzlaff knows exactly what I'm talking about. But since she's taken over, I always brag about her. She does a great job. And the one thing that I'm so impressed with is her classroom. The way that whenever I've walked in, the kind of things that she's doing in the classroom, very ingenious, very good. And she's always up and around doing things. And I don't walk in and watch her playing video games and doing things like that, So I'm very proud of how she's taken over and just done what she's doing. And I feel that the BBN is in very, very good hands.
Do you have any, hopes or dreams for, do you have any aspirations that you want this program to, grow into? Or are there any that you feel like the program's already reached?
Well, I think the toughest thing is, talking with Mrs. Ratzlaff on some of these things and seeing some of the things that have been going on, I know it's tough to get things to happen. I know she wants to, and sometimes it just doesn't work out that way, to have, at a basketball game, to have 4 cameras going and to do this or to do that. I always had those kind of aspirations, and I think she's a nicer teacher than I was, because I pretty much said, you don't show, you flunk, that kind of stuff. And I think she's just nicer than I am for some of that stuff, and understands kids' needs more than I did. But, there's some things that I would like to see her do that I know she just probably can't do, just because of a number of students that you need. I always had these big aspirations to put on the basketball goals, to have a little mic on the basketball goals, so when a shot does go up, you hear the rim going, or you do this. But I was always kind of anal when it came to that kind of stuff. And whenever you do that kind of stuff, it just makes more work for you too. And sometimes it's just not conducive to what you're actually doing.
What were some of the challenges that came with starting up the BBN program?
Okay, when I first started, like I said that when I talked to the superintendent and principal as to, okay, what do you want me to do? And their response was, whatever you want to do. Okay, well, when that happens, now that opens the door wide open. But the problem is, there was no curriculum that they gave me. There was no papers, there was no books, there was nothing. And so I had to spend the last part of my 2013, before the summer, looking at things, going to schools. I went to visited St. Louis. I went and I talked to different schools. I went online. I looked at curriculum. I would steal a little bit of curriculum from a St. Louis school. I would steal a little bit of curriculum from a California school. I would steal a little bit of curriculum from a Texas school. And then the problem is okay, now you have to put it all together, and how are you going to make it work? How are you going to incorporate these things into the classroom? And then you don't know when you've never done it before with the way that it's done, how are you going to base every one of your classes? Okay, honestly, I can't even remember what my classes were, because they're different names than they are today. And I know, like with CTE, I think they've made Mrs. Ratzlaff change the names that we used to have. And the first year was like the biggest learning experience I think I've ever had in all my teaching. you had to buy equipment. You were with limited money. I mean, when we started, we had that much. School didn't give me anything. Although I got some money from the Booster Club, which helped. And then I ended up getting a little bit of money from another donation of some sort. And then I had to figure out, how am I going to make money for the classroom so I can buy these items? And then that's when I came up with, okay, well, commercials. All right, let's go around and sell commercials and do that kind of stuff and get them into the streaming part of it. And, gosh, it's just talking about it right now makes me nervous. I mean, I actually, my blood pressure is going up because I look back and I go, man, alive, I had to go through all that stuff just to get this going. But eventually we got on the right track, and I think Mrs. Ratzlaff probably has the same thing, where people are actually coming to you to get their commercials on, and I think money just started flowing in so we could get the equipment that we needed, and it's just kind of snowballed from there, I think.
So how would you compare like what we're doing to other schools and even some universities?
Okay. Yeah, that's a good question, because when I started this, the only other school that I knew of around that had anything similar was in Garden City. I used them as a good source for finding things, information. I would go down there and I looked at their studio, I looked at their stuff. But as compared to anybody our size, I don't know of anybody in the entire state that has anything comparable to what we do. I know there's some schools that may have an hour a day that do this, but I don't think there is a school system in the entire state that is a 3A school that dedicates an entire day to broadcasting media or anything like that. I don't know if there's many, if any, 4A schools. I think the schools that do this are your big 5 and 6A schools. Because I know when we would compete for like the trophies that we get from KAB, we were always competing against the big 6A schools and some of the 5A schools, and that was always tough. We'd throw in stuff that we thought was really, really good, and, I'd look and see that, some of these 5 and 6A schools had, even better stuff sometimes. But we're pretty special for what we have. And for us to be able to continue to do that is something that can be said about the district we live in, how important, that they feel something like this is. And then for, Mrs. Ratzlaff for keeping it at the level that she's keeping it at, that is very, very impressive, because, again, like I said, to dedicate all day to this type of a program it's an important thing. I really do believe, just because of what it can do. And I think until you've actually taught it or worked in it, you don't realize what kind of benefits things like this can do for kids.
If you could give advice to other schools that are wanting to start a broadcasting program but don't necessarily have the funds or the know-how, what advice would you give them?
Well, seriously, they're going to have to find some booster first. Little cameras are expensive. Just starting it out, that's part of it. You got to have cameras, you got to have equipment, and you got to have space. The one thing that I've always been disappointed in with our space is that it's not long enough. It doesn't give us a good enough thing for a good green screen and green area, and it's always caused problems in that case, but it's better than nothing. But the thing is, my advice to them is, you got to start with money. And whether you want to or not, you got to find some source where you're going to get $20,000, $30,000 just to get your foot in the door. And people say, well, yeah, you can start in cheaper than that. Not if you're going to do it right. because that's what I told the principal and the superintendent. I said, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it my way and I'm going to do it right. And they were very good with that. And I think the district is going to have to buy into it, if that's going to happen. And it doesn't have to come from the district. I'm sure they can find someone around that is willing to go all in and help out to get the program started. And then from there, how they're going to keep up with it, if they do the streaming, advertisements and things like that. But yeah, before you just jump in, find a money source first.
So aside from your national championship that you won, what would you say, other high achievements have you won through the BBN program?
Well, I guess there's really nothing that gives us, any of the, other than the achievements of some of my students going on to college, doing some of the different things that they did. And then, some of the students, winning the awards against some of those big schools, that was the funnest thing. When you have, you got a kid, Chandler Jansen, won they had an entertainment section. I don't know if they still have an entertainment section right now, but they had an entertainment section. And the comments that the judge wrote about Chandler Jansen and his comedy hour, or whatever you want to call it, were just phenomenal. They loved what he did. They said they'd never seen anything better. He did such a great job. And then some of the students that I had where when we did for newscasts and you put on for some of these people that would compete against the others were for anchor. And like Kiana Yeager won the 1 year, and the judge said to her, young lady, you have a career in this if this is where you choose to go, the path. And seeing some of those accomplishments, I don't think it was my accomplishments so much as it was my students' accomplishments. But, I guess I take a little ownership in that because they were with me. And so I guess that's some of the accomplishments that I would say would be some of the most special in that case.
If you could give advice to someone who is thinking about joining our BBN program or their local broadcasting program, is there any advice you would give them?
Well, the thing about this, and I know Mrs. Ratzlaff is continuing on. I know, with what I did, I gave my students a lot of freedom to do things. And I think the thing is, there's not another class that is going to prepare you for life situations, for different situations that you're going to encounter than this type of a classroom setting. The thing about it is you are pretty much self-guided. I know you are with other classes too, with different things. You're on your own, you do your stuff, but it's just different. And I think that if people understand, you don't always have to be behind a camera or be in front of a camera, when you're doing these kind of things. And a lot of these kind of things that you do will bring you out of your comfort zones. And sometimes that, I should say not sometimes, that is always a good thing when students and even teachers are brought out of their comfort zones to do something that they are challenged in, or just something they don't even know that they like to do. And I think that these kinds of things, these kind of skills that this kind of a classroom brings is second to none. And that's the thing. There's no other class that uses both sides of the brain like this one does. Mm-hmm. If they look at the studies of it, people don't realize it until you see it in action. And you got to do this and this and this from first, and then you incorporate it, and then go into your editing part, and you're doing so many different things, so.
Thank you for joining me today, Mr. Holt. If you enjoyed this episode of Behind the Scenes of BBN, then make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for the next episode where I will be talking to the current teacher of the BBN program.